is Rabbi Simon, your host today on our chosen people of Yud-He-Vav-Hev, the creator of this earth. Who are they? We're on part 8, I believe. I've been away for a number of weeks, probably a few months, because of various engagements. But I have been here, and many of you asked to do more recordings of teachings. As I'm aware that we do teachings on other forums as well, like Pal Talk, where you can join us on the Shabbat day, that's like today, 5:30 p.m. Eastern US time. There is a room that we have over there called Yeshua, the real Yehoshua, and Torah. It is under the Africa section and other. That's in Pal Talk. We also conduct Sabbath services in London. For those of you who are in England and wish to join us, we conduct fortnightly Sabbath services in near Victoria Station. So for those details, there is an email address at the end of this program that will be given that you can look at and write, and a telephone number that you can use to connect with me if you need to. I do talk to people all over the world, as it may not be apparent to some of you. I was speaking to a couple of brothers in South Africa and Tanzania just a couple of nights ago, discussing about the true faith and discussing about present world today, and how is it that we receive the contract agreements from our Elohim, and how is it that we fulfill those. Now, one of the questions that is often asked is this, that if the Hebrews were black Negro people, now notice this, that there were black people, there were Negro people, but there was a mixture throughout our people of black-skinned people, light-skinned, brown, and there were even some Caucasian-skinned people amongst us. So coming to the point is, then they ask the question, if the Negroes were the Hebrew, or let's just say black people were Hebrews, then two questions are asked. Who is, for instance, in Israel today? Because as you know, in Israel today, majority of the folks are Ashkenazim, and then we have the Sephardim, then we also have the Middle Eastern Jews. Now, Ashkenazim, I'm going to go into that a little later, and Sephardim, what the actual words mean. Then the other assertion by a lot of the Hebrew Israelites out there is this, that all the white people are Edom, and they are of the devil. Now, is that accurate to make that kind of statement? We will look at that. One of the things that I want to point out is that for your information and knowledge is this, that Edom, like Jacob, which will probably be another segment of my discussion and another program, is that Edom was not Caucasian to start with. He was a black man. Okay, so if you're going to make all white people seed of the devil, for argument's sake, that just wouldn't hold true just on that basis. So we need to separate fact from fiction and find out who are today's Edomites. Okay, so the people in Israel will look at that point as well. This is the purpose of today's program, is to clarify those points. And isn't it also true that the modern Jewry, that is the Ashkenazim, have originated from Caucasus Mountains? Where are the Caucasus Mountains? Well, most of you who understand history, or at least some of you, I doubt many of you understand history, you need to obviously go and do some research on that. Caucasus Mountains are not far off from Iran and Russia, and I would say probably more closer to Russia, and there was a huge kingdom in there at one time, which the Russians even don't like to admit. That was called the Khazarian kingdom, and a lot of the Ashkenaz today who have come in to call themselves Jews are converts from that kingdom, and they are the people who inhabited after the kingdom was broken apart by Muslims, by the way, because they held back Islamic forces to cross over to the Russian region. This is why you don't find that a lot of those people ended up becoming Muslims. So either they became Christians, kind of pseudo-Christian, like the Catholic variety, the what they call the traditional Christian, or they became that kingdom at that particular time, obviously being Khazaria, they became convert Jews. Okay, so when that kingdom was broken by Islamic forces, and that was during the 8th century, 9th century AD, that's or CE, that's this side of our centuries, not the BCE era. And it was that time that they came into Europe, and they inhabited large portions of Europe. Countries like Germany, countries like, for instance, Hungary, and all these kind of countries. Poland was inhabited by them. This is why today you have the Polish Jew, the Hungarian Jew, even the Hungarian Jews or the Khazarians, they influenced the language of Hungary as well. Part of the Hebrew script ended up in the Hungary language. So this is a kind of thing. Now we also need to identify the Edomites, for instance. So if, for instance, those people are from the Ashkenazim, who is Ashkenaz? So I will take you to the map that I've drawn quickly for you in a hurry. This is Japheth, one of the sons of Noah. Then we have Shem, one of the sons of Noah. Then we have Ham, another son of Noah. So we have the three sons of Noah. That is their daddy. That's who they descended from. Let's make that clear. Now, what happened then, below that we have sons. I've only mentioned part sons. I haven't mentioned all of them because my purpose is to illustrate the point. One of the sons of Japheth was Ashkenaz. All the Europeans, Caucasians today, have descended from Ashkenaz. So all the white Caucasian Jewry out there, doesn't matter what they call themselves, Jews, non-Jews, whatever, those people are the sons of Ashkenaz. And so they are Europeans, they are not Semitic people. They may charge in Israel today with the Arab people being anti-Semitic, but actually this is kind of a ludicrous kind of charge, because Arabs are Semitic whilst the Caucasian Jewry isn't Semitic. Then we have the Togarma, who was also one of the sons of Japheth, and Togarma are the Turkic people. Notice today's modern Turkic people are of also Caucasoid skin color. They are not black skin, okay? So this is how we have this mixing. And if you think that I am just making these things up, I want you to go and type some of the names of the Zionist people who established Israel in 1948, and those people who became prime ministers and so forth at that particular time. Golda Meir and some of the other people who were there, I want you to go and check where they got educated from. Those people were of Togarma, house of Togarma. They were Turkic, pure and simple. Ashkenaz, that means from Japheth, if they were from Togarma, if they were Turkic, and that's where they came from, that's where they educated, therefore those people are Gentile converts into what our faith really was. Now coming back to Shem, now I'm going to mention two of the descendants of Shem. One is Esau, one is Jacob. If Esau was a Caucasoid, if he was of white skin color, then Esau, rightly so, then you could point out that somehow there was a crossing over here to here, but unfortunately it doesn't quite work like that. I will explain how the crossing happened. Esau was a black man, because if we look at Shem, and if we look at the ancestor below Shem, like Yitzhak, Isaac, if Isaac was black or a man of color, then both of his sons were also men of color. That goes for Esau, that goes for Yaqub, Jacob. Okay, we will look at Jacob another time. Well, I will explain how we can determine that he was definitely of black skin color. So was Esau. Now one of the things that is mentioned in there actually helps us, and this is how a lot of people get lost in tracking Jacob, but I will help you do that. Okay, so Ham is, or Cham basically means hot. In the Hebrew, in the ancient Hebrew, it means black. Okay, it means hot, like black, like an oven. So if Cham is black, then Cham's children were black. Mitzrayim, Egypt. Mitzrayim is the ancient name. Egypt is a modern name, or Mitzar. We have Cush. Cush is again the ancient name. Today, modern name is Ethiopia, but actually that's not entirely correct, because Cush is not just Ethiopia. Cush covers a very large, broad region in that particular hemisphere, and part of that region is also what I call southeastern Arabia, Sudan, and some other nations that encompass that particular area today. Now, I want to point out that John Hyrcanus, who was a son of Matthew Maccabee. Now remember, we are coming close to something called Hanukkah, not far away from now, 21st of December. John Hyrcanus, he was a son of Matthew Maccabee, and Maccabee is the one who drove the Greeks out. Who are the Greeks? The Greeks are these people, Turkic, Togarma, house of Togarma, okay? So when he drove those people out, he helped destroy the temple, and some of you may not even have heard of this. he have destroyed the temple that was at Mount Gerizim, that was built by the Samaritans, okay? That was near Mount Gerizim, a city called at that time Shechem. If any of you have correct understanding of our father Abraham, a man of color, then Abraham dwelled at Shechem at one time, okay? So we can understand why this particular temple was built there, which John Hyrcanus, Yochanan Hyrcanus, actually destroyed completely. And we can read about that. I will give you a reference, Antiquities, and this is War of the Jews. This is Josephus Flavius, the historian. He mentions Antiquities 13:257. I will have it written on the screen so you don't miss it. Antiquities 13:39. Josephus also tells us that when the south of that Hyrcanus, John Hyrcanus, went into the south of Israel in Elat, what is today known as Elat, and also the Idumean regions. What are the Idumean regions? They are the regions directly below Israel that run partly into Jordan and also into northern Arabia. He went into those regions and he actually forcefully converted all the Idumeans. Now these Idumeans were the Edomites, okay? These were these people, sons of Esau. He converted them forcefully into Judaism. That is how you set up Judaism to become what it is today. So when people talk about Islamic, for instance, conversions, forced conversions today, Islam learned these forceful conversions from our forefathers. Okay, so be careful about, when you label somebody as forcefully converting people, including Christians, that they did the same thing. You can call it Catholics, you can call it Christians. It doesn't matter to me what label you want to give them. Christians, they believe in Jesus Christ. Either way, whether it's Catholics or it's non-Catholics, doesn't matter. So they both inherited traditions of each other, or I should say, Christianity is a daughter of Catholicism. So having said that, so forced conversions were derived from our forefathers. Well, I think that was a mistake, personally. But anyway, that's my personal opinion. But having said that, that was to happen prophetically speaking, because that is what set up Israel to be what it is today. This is how these people, the Ashkenazim, were able to cross over. This is how you have your prime ministers of Israel, your early prime minister of Israel, and the other people that were there. These are those people. That's how Esau managed to overcross into what I term Judaism. And we have this relationship between Esau and between the Togarma, Turkic Caucasoid people. Caucasoid people meaning people of white skin color. Now we must be careful that within those people we can't lump all the Europeans within that skin color, like the British, the Italians, the French. However, I want to say something about the Italians. There are part and parcel Italians mixed in there as well. That is these people, Ashkenaz. So Ashkenaz also partly cross over to Esau. How do they cross over? Because I will explain that Herod, or Herod the Great, one of the people who was an Edomite hybrid convert to Judaism. Now obviously his family had been forcefully converted. He had then realized, the Edomites realized, that they could acquire power by controlling the temple. If they control the temple in Jerusalem, they will have the power to control all of the people of Israel. That's what they did. They controlled the temple. Okay, this is how he ended up marrying into the Roman side, the Italians. So Italians ended up in the mix. That's today's modern Italians, the Europeans. They ended up in the mix of Esau and Togarma. Therefore, does it include the British? Because British also had Rome. The answer is, generally speaking, no. Most of the British people are not included in that mix. Or most of the, for argument's sake, if we take other countries like Polish, take Hungarians, etc., you'll find very little mixing of those people in today's modern Jewry. So modern Jewry today has completely developed from some from Ashkenaz, some from Togarma. What happened when they mixed? You produce mixed children, and over a period of time, which we know was hundreds and thousands of years, what happens is the children turn out completely Caucasoid. The color has completely been lost. So the way to understand it is, if you marry a Caucasian woman today, if you're a black man or if you're a brown skin color, you're likely to have children which are going to be what I call mix. But if the next generation of the mixed children, they won't even know that they come from a black origin, because they'll be totally looking like Europeans. So we can understand, and this is how the modern day Jews were able to inhabit Israel by converting into our faith, technically those people are Gentiles. But because they came into Israel, because they accepted the religious and the beliefs of Israelites who were people of color, therefore they call themselves Hebrews today. However, there's a demarcation, there's some things that we can say over here, some things we can't say. What we can't say is that whether all those people are evil, but we can say is that Zionism in itself is an evil ideology, political evil ideology. We do not adhere or we do not stick to any kind of Zionist ideology. A lot of the Zionists are secularists, but there are also religious Zionists. I don't want to say any further than that about religious Zionists. If they are Torah abiding, if they believe in the Torah and they serve the Most High, then their relationship will dictate what happens to them. Okay, so we move on, and as I showed you the different people that came about as a result of that. Now I want to also point out is that there were marriages. Now there were marriages because there's only 3 sons. Okay. Now, most of you are not familiar with these terms because you haven't had the Eastern background. There were marriages between what we call cousin marriages or half brothers, half sisters. These are perfectly legible. They are allowed according to halakha and Torah as well. There were marriages between the sons and daughters of Shem, Ham and Japheth. One of the interesting points I want to make, which you can read in the Abrahamic Faith Netzarim Study Hebrew Study Scriptures, which you have to purchase from the Abrahamic Faith website, is that one of Japheth's daughters was the wife of Abraham. Did you know that? She was. So you can look up that information in the Abrahamic Faith Netzarim Hebraic Study Scriptures. The reference that will be on the website at the end of this show. Also, I want to point out that if you understand who Yehoshua is, there's a book called The Black Yehoshua. If you want to understand his genealogies, there's a book called Beit Yehoshua, the son of Zadok, son of Daud, etc., etc. There's lots of material to help you into developing a correct understanding of historical basis of what you are and what we were in the past, etc. One of the things I want to point out is this nonsensical argument that all the, for instance, people in Haishi are Levites. The answer is they're not. Okay, so a lot of this kind of bad theology is perpetrated on the internet, and a lot of those people are not Levites. Levites were actually mixed into many nations when they left Israel, and if there were Levites anywhere that we are recorded in history is Iran and Iraq. These are the 2 places where the Levites ended up in, apart from other nations as well. We know that there are the Lemba in Zimbabwe. They are also, some of them are also of the Levite clan. So Levites were kind of mixed into those people. But what the Haitian people could be is that there is a majority in there who are of the 10 tribes, but not necessarily Levites. So don't make all of yourselves as Levites. Okay, so there is a mixture. So we need to understand that. And one of the other false theologies that's going around in Hebrew Israelite camp is that, oh well, if you were not a slave, you can't be a Hebrew Israelite. Well, whoever gave you that example obviously doesn't know anything about history or anything about what happened to our people. One of the things I want to point out is that you will not hear this from anywhere else apart from me, is that Levites were not slaves, never were slaves. Okay, Levites did not accept the ruling of the Pharaoh in Egypt, even at the time when the children of Israel, when our ancestors became slaves, we were not slaves. So I'm of the house of Levi. We never became slaves because we never accepted what the Pharaoh offered. We refused to work. And we were allotted land where we were living. And this is how you can read in the Torah, and you can see for yourself that Aharon, when he went to meet Moses, he moved freely to meet Moses. He didn't have to ask his boss, can I take a day off please and go and see him? How did Aaron move about freely? Because Aaron and Aaron's sons were not slaves. Okay, the house of Aaron, that's where I belong to, we were not slaves. We never were slaves. However, when Israel was broken, when Israel was taken into captivity during the first, second and third break by Nebuchadnezzar, and then later by the Romans, our people ended up as slaves temporarily, but as soon as they crossed over to the other side, they were given freedom, they were given facilities, and we were actually still teachers at that time. So we want to continue. One of the points I want to make about the Caucasoid people is this, that according to the historian Herodotus, the history of the Colchians, the history of the Colchians, a people called Russian, Chechens and Slavs, were originally from the dark races of people, okay, in Africa, inhabiting those regions in 2000 BCE, when it was ruled by Africans. So who are these Colchians? Who are these people? See, remember, so for that, to understand that particular point, remember what I said earlier. Japheth, Shem, Ham, 3 sons. There was a mixing because the sons and daughters of these 3 people intermarried. This is why all 3 of these boys, they were called Africans, because Israel as a nation is in northeast Africa. That is one of the things that most of you don't understand. Israel is not in Middle East. Middle East is a term coined by the British in 1928. That happened when King Abdul Aziz, when he conquered Arabia, when he defeated Al-Rashid in for instance, in what's termed Hijaz, which is the area of southeastern Arabia. At that particular point, an area, for instance, that he covered, he wiped the whole clan of Al-Rashid in the Najd, and when he did that, and then afterwards he declared his kingship in 1927, and in 1928, because the British wanted to formulate an alliance, and they wanted to go over there, and they had certain lands they had in their possession, such as Israel. So at that particular point in history, they coined the term Middle East. It was the British people that actually went and formulated what is Arabia, what is Syria, what is Iraq, etc., etc. They actually drew the lines, okay? So most of you have completely no knowledge of these things, and you make up assumptions that Israel is in the Middle East. Israel is actually a northeast African country. Maybe another time I will explain that in more detail. So we've looked at the 3 sons of Noah, that they were called Africans. Why were they called Africans? Because Noah, who is their daddy, his ark landed in Africa. Okay, his ark did not land in what is purported to be Turkey or Iran or anywhere else for that matter, apart from Africa. Now, one of the things you can quickly validate, and this is explained in the AFN Study Bible as well, is that how do we determine today if what I'm saying is true or not? It's very easy, very easy. Check for yourselves in the whole world, where is the largest population of animals? Is it in Turkey? Is it in Iran? Or is it in Africa? Do the British from here or the Americans go for their safaris to Africa, or do they go for their safaris in Turkey? If they go for their safaris in Africa, then you will know that that is where our ancestors are. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to continue. I was going to take a break, but I'm going to continue. So coming back to that, one of the things that the books of Enoch, the 3 books of Enoch that we also actually have translated and can be obtained through the Abrahamic-faith.info website, can be looked at, and they give us some of the very good information, and behind the commentaries is a commentary that I did myself, that you will see that some of the things I've told you today will be actually found in the books of Enoch, which are canonical, by the way. So the question then comes is how do we hide the true identity of the people and to keep them in shackle? I think maybe I will do that in the next segment of the program, how we lost our identity, how our people became in shackles, and what happened and what not, etc. Because otherwise we're going to run out of time here. However, I want to point out this particular fact that this particular fella, that is Jesus of the Christians, the Caucasoid Jesus, he is not our Messiah as such. Maybe you could say they are teaching it in ignorance, in which case we need to understand it slightly, that they are teaching that he's abrogated the law. No, he hasn't abrogated the law. Our real Messiah, Yahushua, who many of you commonly call Yeshua, which is the Aramaic form of his name, was a man of non-Caucasoid skin. He was a man of black skin color. He was a man who taught Torah, and he was a man who commanded us to keep and obey the Torah. So therefore we need to understand that this Christian fella, Jesus, is not really our Messiah as such, because he teaches completely contrary, or I would say if not him, at least his so-called ministers teach completely contrary to the renewed contract agreement that Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh gave us. Okay, so in other words, you can take it as ignorance from the Christian camp, but our real Messiah, Yahushua of Nazareth, was a person of color, was a product of two marriages of Joseph, who was married to two wives, and one of the wives, who was Miriam from the north, who was living in Nazareth, that is the wife that he was begotten through. But one more point, that Joseph came to Bethlehem, and Bethlehem, today known as Bethlehem, is the place where he was born according to the prophets and according to the Torah, where there is some mention of him as well, which people probably don't know. But having said that, my point being that if you are keeping Christianity as truth, then a lot of the things that Christianity has, what they call truth, are simply traditions. They are not truth. Okay, I can probably rule out 90% of Christianity as simply just traditions and not true things that are completely untrue are taught, such as we're just going to arrive, this is a month of December, we're going to arrive at Christmas anytime in 25th, and you can see this is another tradition, and yet Christians and Catholics keep it as some kind of holy writ. It is not holy writ. So moving on, the original Messiah was black. You can read that in my book called Yahushua the Black Messiah, where I present the evidence. Whilst the Western version teaches Christianity according to their forefathers, who were all haters of Israel. They hated us, all of them. So should we hate them back? No, we shouldn't hate them back. But the reason why they hated us primarily was because of the agreements and the contracts that we had with Yud-Heh-Vav-Heh. We disobeyed, we were cursed, we were basically thrown out of our own land. So then the hatred pursued us. Now, one of the other things I want to point out is this so-called this theory from the evolutionist camp. Now, the Neanderthal and the Cro Magnon, these are the species that they claim are from the evolution. These men can be traced to the Bushmen of Africa. With the sizes of their skull, they have been found in Africa. However, Charlie Chaplin, that is who I call Charlie Chaplin is Charles Darwin. That's his nickname from me, and he basically wants you to believe that all men evolved from apes. Now, well, if all men evolved from apes, then I'm still in search of the white ape where the Caucasian species descended from, because yet I haven't found the white ape yet. Having known that, is that one interesting point is that yes, the first common ancestor for all the people in the world is Africa. That is recognized by secular history today, whilst many people are still in their delusions or in their so-called scientific facts. But science itself can prove, if science is read correctly and interpreted correctly, that the first man was from Africa. We know that above this person, that's the person who the present races have descended through, was a person called Adam. And Adam was also created in Africa. See, once you understand where Adam was, then you understand why these people, secularists today, who do not even believe in the Creator, are pointing out that the common ancestors of the two species I pointed out, Neanderthal and Cro Magnon, was Bushmen in Africa. Okay, so the credit then really goes to Sir Isaac Newton, because he came up with the color spectrum theory that all colors come from black. It would be impossible to produce all the different colors or all the different races of people from Mr. and Mrs. Noah or Mrs. and Mrs. Adam if they were both Caucasian, because Caucasian cannot then produce the darker pigmentation that we need in order to have the black skin color, the brown skin color, then also the Chinese skin color, the yellowish skin color, etc. So this should point out that our source and our root is Africa. I'm going to finish it at this point because I've gone on quite a bit, and we will continue in part 10 of what happened to our people, how did their identity get erased. Thank you very much for listening. This is Rabbi Simon Altaf, your host, presenting the facts on the ground as they exist. Shabbat Shalom to you.